We often say appearance reflects the heart, which means that a person's virtues, vices, and moral character are manifested in their appearance. This is the essence of the ancient practice of physiognomy. However, this phrase carries a deeper meaning beyond the core of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. It represents the essence of ancient thinkers' philosophies as well. Hello, today we will discuss Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. Let's take a look at how Lao Tzu perceives virtues, vices, right and wrong, and how we can objectively observe all things, following the natural course of the Tao. The concept of appearance reflects the heart has two layers of meaning. The first layer of meaning refers to a person's inner virtues or vices being reflected in their outward appearance. The term appearance here refers to one's physical appearance, facial features. However, there is a second layer of meaning to this concept. It can also be understood as external appearance. What does external appearance mean? Appearance reflects the heart originates from the Sutra on the Five Contemplations, in which the Buddha said, "In worldly affairs there is no inherent appearance. Appearances arise from the mind. Visible things are not real and perceivable matters are not substantial. Life is created by oneself, appearance reflects the heart. Circumstances change with the mind and accommodating is greatness." This means that the world originally lacks specific forms and concepts. The concepts of good, bad, virtue, and vice arise because of changes in our inner selves. What we see with our eyes may not necessarily be the truth of the world, and what we perceive may not be the essence of this world. For example, when someone loses a valuable item at home and suspects that their neighbor stole it, they observe their neighbor's words and actions, and everything seems suspicious and deceitful. However, after finding the lost item in their own home a couple of days later, the neighbor no longer gives off a sense of being a thief. In this process, the neighbor's outward appearance did not change. The only thing that changed was the observer's mind. We can also do a simple test to experience the concept of appearance reflects the heart. Take a look at this picture. Do you see a side view of a young girl or an elderly woman looking down? Take 10 seconds to observe. This is one of the most famous ambiguous figures created by British cartoonist William Hill, titled "My Wife and My Mother-in-Law." A group of scientists from Australia conducted a test using this image and concluded that the perception of this artwork largely depends on the viewer's age. This conclusion was published in the British journal Scientific Reports. The statistical results showed that younger viewers tend to see a young woman in the picture, and the younger the viewer, the younger they perceive the woman to be. On the other hand, older viewers mostly see an old woman. We often say, "Don't make hasty assumptions, trust what you see." However, sometimes what we see may not be the truth. So, do you still firmly believe in those ideas you consider to be correct? Now let's look at a line from the Diamond Sutra. "All conditioned phenomena are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, or a shadow, like dew or a flash of lightning. Thus should you observe and contemplate them." Do you feel a sense of enlightenment? Why is everything like a dream, an illusion, or a bubble? Because our most trusted senses and consciousness can sometimes deceive us. Often the world we see through our eyes is only our own subjective perception and may not be the true reality. That's why the Diamond Sutra presents the realization that all that has a form is illusory. Therefore, Huineng, also known as the sixth patriarch of Zen, said, "Bodhi is not a tree and the mirror does not stand. There is nothing from the beginning. Where can dust alight? In reality, there is nothing. So where do troubles come from? Why do we have the concept of good and evil, right and wrong? In this modern world of rapid technological advancement, there is a constant influx of information every day. After reading a social hot topic, we unconsciously bring in the concept of good and evil, right and wrong, creating debates. We can casually browse through several hot news or watch some videos, and almost all comments on the information spark debates. Researchers dislike others talking about metaphysics. Herbalists dislike criticism of traditional Chinese medicine. Wealthy individuals feel superior, and impoverished individuals lament the disparities of the world. People engage in debates every day, seemingly arguing over matters of good and evil, right and wrong. But in reality, they are arguing for their own positions. Many things themselves do not have a clear distinction of right or wrong. It is the different perspectives and positions of individuals that lead to judgments of right and wrong. Varying positions result in divergent thoughts, and the unwillingness to change one's own views leads to debates. For example, is pursuing education the only way out for people? Regardless of whether the answer is yes or no, it is not the correct answer because everyone is in a different situation, and the suitable path varies. As Zhuangzi said, in this world, many issues lack a unified standard. Debates arise because people stand in their own positions, living in their own worlds. When a person is upset, they may loathe the entire world. When someone is in a good mood, they may be tolerant of all the mistakes made by those around them. A troubled person perceives any slight movement as a source of fear, while a person with a bright mind approaches everything with a sense of tolerance. We need to be more objective in our approach to the world and all things. The abundance of emotions and the belief that they are good or bad, virtuous or evil, arise from within us. When a person's heart changes, the world changes. The appearance of a person's heart reflects the appearance of the world in their eyes. This is also one of the core ideas of the Tao Te Ching. How can we attain the Tao? Lao Tzu said in Chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching, "When everyone in the world recognizes beauty as beauty, ugliness arises. When everyone recognizes good as good, evil arises. Therefore, being and non-being produce each other. Difficult and easy complement each other. Long and short define each other. High and low depend on each other. Sound and silence harmonize with each other. Before and after follow each other." When we define something as beautiful, ugliness arises. When we define something as good, evil arises. People often define things based on the viewpoint of good and evil, right and wrong. But in reality, things themselves don't necessarily have to be black or white. We perceive everything through opposition because we are too attached to our delusions and continuously engage in debates with others. That's why Lao Tzu says not to contend, to embrace non-action. The act of contention implies believing that one is right, while non-contention is the marvel of the Tao. What should we do when faced with such situations? Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, "Therefore, always rid yourself of desires in order to observe its secrets. Always allow yourself to have desires in order to observe its manifestations." This means forgetting our subjective notions of good and bad, and desires to rediscover the true beauty of the world and hear the celestial music. We often say that a beautiful song is like celestial music, but what exactly is celestial music? The term celestial music is frequently mentioned and originates from the discussion on making all things equal chapter of Zhuangzi. In the state of sitting in forgetfulness, there was a man named Zhuangzi in the state of Chu who reached the realm of unity with heaven, earth, and oneself, where all things merge into one. His disciples then asked him, "What is the highest state of forgetting oneself?" Zhuangzi replied that there exist 3 types of sounds in this world: human sounds, earth sounds, and celestial sounds. Human sounds refer to sounds produced by people playing musical instruments. Earth sounds are the sounds emitted by the earth when the wind blows across it, and celestial sounds are the beautiful sounds emitted by the wind blowing through all things in the world. To hear the celestial music, one must first reach the state of forgetting oneself and merge with heaven and earth. The so-called celestial music is the sound emitted by all things when we let go of attachments and our own positions. It is the true nature of sound itself, devoid of emotions such as joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure, and free from concepts of good and evil. When people hear it, they generate a subjective consciousness based on their own state of mind. When in a good mood, they feel joy upon hearing cheerful music. When in a bad mood, even cheerful music can be irritating. However, when we are in a state of tranquility, what we hear is the true state of the music itself. That is celestial music. Therefore, the quality of music does not lie in the music itself, but in the person who listens to it. Similarly, the goodness or badness of anything does not lie in the thing itself, but in the perspective of the observer. That's why Lao Tzu talks about 30 spokes share the wheel's hub. It is the center hole that makes it useful. Shape clay into a vessel. It is the space within that makes it useful. Cut out doors and windows for a room. It is the holes that make it useful. Therefore, the value comes from what is there, but the use comes from what is not there. 30 spokes join together to form a wheel, but a wheel on its own is useless. Only when combined into a chariot does it become highly useful. A pile of clay on its own appears worthless, but once molded into a vessel, it demonstrates its value. The same goes for doors and windows. If they are not used to construct a house, they are merely useless objects. Therefore, objective material always possesses its utility. Even things that seem to have no use can be transformed into something useful. Thus, usefulness or uselessness depends on how people use them. Similarly, the concepts of good and bad, right and wrong, depend on the perspective from which people analyze them. To free ourselves from fixed thinking, we must empty our minds. A cup can fulfill its function as a cup because it is empty. It can contain water. A house can fulfill its function as a house because it has space within it. It can accommodate people. A person has a good side, and thus they may also have an evil side. Conversely, a person has an evil side, and they may also have a good side. This is one of the ways ancient sages achieved enlightenment. Lao Tzu said, "The flexible are preserved by the unyielding, and the yielding are preserved by the inflexible." Everything under heaven originates from being, and being originates from non-being. Because a person's thinking becomes fixed, they can only see the positive or negative aspects of things and fail to view them comprehensively. Therefore, they cannot comprehend the secrets of the Tao. Most of the joy and suffering in this world are determined by our thinking, not because they inherently bring joy or suffering. As the saying goes, after misfortune comes fortune, after extreme joy comes sorrow. Even in the face of a very bad situation, a change in perspective may reveal an opportunity. When things are going smoothly, one should be cautious and think about potential dangers. As someone once said, "What's the point of knowing the wisdom of these ancient sages?" In this society, making money is considered the most useful thing. Making money allows us to live better lives. However, because people have different perspectives, the definition of good and bad also differs. Therefore, what is useful to one person may not be useful to another. Is discussing the wisdom of life useful? Is making money wrong? Usefulness or uselessness, right or wrong? There is no universal answer. It depends on an individual's state of mind and the life stage they are in. Everyone has their own perspective on how to approach issues. However, when a person stubbornly believes that their answer is the only correct one, that is truly wrong. When we argue with a stubborn person, it is like staring into an abyss. In the end, we may fall into that abyss. This is similar to being a vegetarian. There is nothing wrong with being a vegetarian, but if you try to persuade everyone in the world to become vegetarian, that is wrong. Many people like to measure everything using their moral yardstick, but that yardstick is their own. There is no standardized answer that fits everyone in this world. Nothing outside the mind, nothing outside reason. This phrase is from Wang Yangming's Instructions for Practical Living and is also one of the core ideas of his school of thought. The material world is what we see in this world, while reason is our perception of right and wrong, good and bad. Because a person has a subjective mind, they perceive external things differently, leading to distinctions of right and wrong. What does nothing outside reason mean? We can understand this concept from a story about Wang Yangming. Once, while weeding, Wang Yangming's disciple raised a question. Feeling tired from removing the weeds, the disciple wondered why it is so difficult to cultivate goodness in the world and eradicate evil. Wang Yangming replied, "Your understanding of good and evil is too superficial. Why is that? Isn't grass good?" When we look at it from the perspective of a flower, we might think the grass absorbs nutrients from the flower, making it evil. But when we feed animals, we consider grass sacrificing itself, so it is good. Is grass inherently good or evil? It is not. It is our thoughts and ideas that determine its goodness or evil. In other words, if we perceive it as good, it can be good. If we perceive it as evil, it can be evil. To a certain extent, our thoughts truly shape the world as we see it. So what is nothing outside reason? Once Wang Yangming and a friend were traveling in Nanjing, enjoying the scenery. Suddenly the friend pointed to a flower growing in a stone and asked, "If there is nothing outside the mind, then what connection does this flower which blooms and falls on its own have with my mind?" Wang Yangming replied, "Before you saw this flower, it and your mind were both in a state of tranquility. After you saw the flower, it appeared in your mind. At that moment, you could understand that the flower is not outside your mind. The existence of the flower in the stone is acknowledged because it appears in the mind." Here, Wang Yangming's flower can be used as a metaphor for all things that are good, the beautiful side of all things. This is actually the concept of appearance originates from the mind. When we view something with a negative mindset, we tend to see its negative side and forget that it inherently has no good or bad. Once we understand this, we can grasp the principle proposed by Lao Tzu in the 14th chapter of the Tao Te Ching. Movement is the root of Tao, and stillness is its use. There is always a cycle between the two aspects of things. When approaching the critical point, they reverse and repeat this cycle. For example, sunlight is weakest at night, gradually becoming stronger during dawn, reaching its peak at noon, and then gradually weakening again. Starting from its strongest point, it returns to its original weak state. This cycle continues endlessly. Similarly, the ups and downs of a person's fortune follow the same pattern of change. When life is smooth, one should be cautious and think about potential dangers. During low periods, one should calm the mind and patiently wait for a turning point. At this point, some people might raise a question. Doesn't Lao Tzu advocate for Wu-Wei, non-action, in the Tao Te Ching? Since grass itself has no good or evil, why bother weeding? Although Lao Tzu proposed Wu-Wei as a way of governing, there are 4 words before it: Shun Yingzi Ran, acting in accordance with nature. Does Wu-Wei mean doing nothing? Of course not. The premise of Wu-Wei is to act in accordance with nature, to follow the rules of the Tao and the operations of the natural world. Pursuing one's passions and acting in accordance with one's own path is also following one's own way. The cycles of birth, old age, sickness, and death are the operations of nature. The rise and fall of things is the operation of their own nature. The most important thing is not to view everything from a subjective perspective, but to empty oneself and forget one's own position, to follow the way of nature, and view everything in a more comprehensive and objective manner. Learn to find the Tao of all things and make use of the Tao of all things. This is how we truly follow the rules of the Tao in our actions. In the end, we will hear the celestial music. This concludes our interpretation of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. If you have your own insights into the Tao Te Ching, feel free to share them in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with your family and friends. Thanks for watching.